One of the things that I wasn't really expecting to kind of be really intrigued by is a game by Polyarch, Moss. You may have seen it at the Sony press conference a couple of days ago, depending on when you're watching this, I suppose. But I think it kind of came across perhaps a little oddly during the conference insofar as it's a little mouse dude that's running around, and that's not really what the games either side of it were kind of portraying. It was a little out of place. But can you give like a rough idea of what people can expect from this game?
So Moss is kind of a classic action-adventure game that we're just kind of bringing players back to the kind of genre that we grew up in. And with VR, we took a step back and said, hey, how do we approach game design in a more in a new intuitive way for this new medium? Because VR is a lot to take in when you're doing it for your first time. So I think the thing that players should expect is like a core action, classic, action adventure game with like combat and puzzle solving, but we have this added element now that VR gives us, which is the ability to reach in with the DualShock and grab things. And so we play on this like back and forth between the hero and the player who plays the role of the reader. In this, you move the character around with the joystick and X jumps, and then the player has to reach in and grab things, kind of do the heavy lifting that the Quill she can't do. And so you'll have this back and forth gameplay where you move the character, Quill around the environment, climbing and jumping, and then you'll have to move things with your hand, reach out and grab and pull bricks so that she can jump over them, or lift the heavy statues so that you can open the door. And so it'll just be this balance between the player reaching into the environment and interacting with things, and then the hero Quill, her combat and her jumping around and her interaction with you.
One of the things that it just suddenly occurred to me, it puts me in mind of, is Trine. So where you have that sort of teamwork aspects where, in order to make sure that your teammate can make it across a gap, you use your power to hold a bridge up in place for them so they can move across, and then they do the same in reverse. So like your ability to reach in with the VR is kind of that co-op element from that sort of game. So was that an inspiration? Were there any other inspirations around making this kind of concept?
There's a lot of inspirations. Again, that whole like classic action adventure game. But then we did look to a bunch of other games for how they dealt with that kind of like alternation between one character doing something and then the other character doing it. And I think the twist that we have now with VR and Moss is that instead of it being two characters on screen, you're one of the characters, right? And so that's a great example that you supplied. There's a bunch more out there where you see this kind of like cooperation between two characters. It's just really exciting that you get to be the character now and not just the camera, right? And so we definitely look to those for those balances and how they, how we design the levels and the spaces that way.
And one of the real things that kind of caught my attention about halfway through the demo that I just played, actually, is you've kind of got like this really focused in view of like the platforms that you're actively taking part in. You're moving from one stage to the other within the screen, but around that you've got like this beautiful world that you've created that's just it's not even sort of pushed towards you in any sort of way, but if you care to look off to the side, you can see like this lush forest floating around. You can start batting away at leaves and whatever else. So how did that kind of come about? Like, were you intent on just originally making that sort of core area for you to focus on, and then the rest came after? What kind of inspired that?
We actually kind of separated that into two things. Again, with what is a good game for VR? How can we like really bring out the interactivity in this medium? A lot of people use the word presence when they describe VR, and it's really good at making you feel like you're a place, which just doubles down on immersion. And so it was definitely one of our goals to make you feel like you were in this world. That's why the art style is a little bit more grounded. That's why the hero is the size she is, because we wanted you to be able to reach within this area, but we also wanted you to feel like you're in this place. That's the beauty of games, is when they can take you into a new world, and that was absolutely what we wanted to do with this. Bring you into the slush forest, bring you into the dungeons, bring you into the any kind of place. And so we have a lot of places, not just the forest, that we'll bring you to, but that's the one that we're showing right now. And so that was definitely a goal, just to we have some players who just like to sit there and be in the forest and watch the butterflies for a little bit before they get onto it. So it's cool. It's definitely one of our goals.
Yeah, and it comes across really well. Like as I say, when you kind of make the realization that it's there, it's like, whoa, like there's so many things to look at.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is being able to look in and see where you're going to go and see where you've come from. That's really fun in regular games, and so to have that in here where you can just kind of lean into the world and look to your left, to your right, up, and see what's behind you, it's awesome.
I mean, that's one of the things that I do on the regular as well. Like, you'll be, I don't know, doing a driving game or something, and then you'll try to see if there's any traffic around the corner and give it a bit of this towards the screen, like trying to check around the corners. But you actually can. Like, at one point I leaned to look down a corridor. It was like the most surreal experience, because it's not a first-person experience,
you're in the world.
but it kind of is looking into the... It's an odd thing to explain, really, I suppose.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges we have with getting people into VR is it's not always as easy to explain it. It's something that you kind of just have to experience, and so it's been awesome to be able to bring people in that and just kind of get them to feel what it's like to be in Moss.
And speaking of things that make you feel and make you imagine, you must have been so excited to be in that Sony press conference as well, in the midst of some real heavy hitters as well, like to have like a solid piece of stage time. Like, what did that mean to you as a developer?
I mean, just like what you would imagine, our hearts were all beating very quickly when we got to see it up there. Sony's been an amazing partner for us, for them to like give us the opportunity as a new studio and a new IP to be up in front of everyone. Like, we're very fortunate that they gave us that opportunity.
For sure. And so when can we actually get our hands on this for ourselves rather than just at the trade shows? And are you bringing it to any other platforms other than Sony?
We're a small team right now, so we're really focused on the PSVR first, and that's going to come out in holiday 2017.
Okay. Yeah. So not too far out at all. And from like a personal perspective, like, I don't get on with VR generally. Most of them give me like motion sickness of some way, shape or form. I really enjoyed this. Like, it scratches an itch that I didn't know existed, and it's definitely worth a look. If you get a chance to give it a whirl yourself, that's going to be the thing that really explains it and it lets you experience it the best. I think it's going to be very hard to convey fully the kind of experience that we had, but definitely give it a check out if you have the slightest chance to do so.